Hi, and welcome back to Plan9Crunch. I'm Joe Gibson, and every week we read from a genre novel. Today I'll be reading from Ultraman, the official novel of the series by Pat Cadigan, and through Titan Books is how this was released. This is adapting the classic Ultraman series from the 60s, but it's setting it in the modern day. That should make it different enough. There's also some differences. Pat Cadigan seems to pretty much completely excise Hoshino, the younger member of the SSSP, from this narrative, which makes sense. He's a child character. It's weird to have him there in the first place, as well as putting in references to cell phones, flat earth, things of the 21st century. I think he also deals with the Baltans a little differently at the end of the second adventure with Ultraman, but largely, this is adapting the episodes of the show that feature Bemular, Baltan. I think it jumps to Red King after that. With Red King, you get Chandlar that he kills. Then also, I think Magular's in that episode. In any case, after that, it gets to Gomorrah and Mephiles, alien Mephiles, and then finally the Zeton adventure, which is the last thing for Ultraman. We might, at a later date, read from that. As I talked about in a previous video, you'll find an end card for that. Ultraman dies at the end of his original story. That's very important to mention. So we might read from that death page later on. But for right now, we're going to read from Mephiles' adventure. Alien Mephiles is a chunky, largely black in coloration with some silver, I think some blue highlights as well, alien coming from the, I think, planet Mephiles, and he wants to take over the Earth, but do so non-violently. And I guess it involves him kidnapping a kid. I haven't watched the episode yet, but I enjoy the prose in terms of how it's described in the book. So, starting on page 221, Satoru came to on a hard metal floor to the sound of a deep male voice calling his name, telling him to wake up. He pushed himself up to a sitting position and looked around. The whole dimly lit room was metal and empty, except for himself and some kind of console or control panel where the voice was coming from. "Who's there?" he asked. It was that same voice from before, not quite as distorted, and no longer just in his head. "Wake up, Satoru." "I am awake," he said, slightly impatient. "Well then, stand up. Let me get a good look at you." Grown-ups were always doing that, saying they wanted to get a good look at you, he thought as he got to his feet, glancing around the metal room nervously, wondering what he was going to step out of the shadows next. Where were Akiko and Hayata? Akiko, Fuji, and Shin Hayata, SSP members that were with Satoru when he was kidnapped. Akiko's his sister. "So who's talking?" he said. "I am." A silhouette melted into existence behind the control panel, a completely black shadow with two glowing blue eyes that he knew were eyes, even though they were nothing like human eyes. This wasn't a human at all. More light came up in the room, and Satoru couldn't help gasping at the sight of the creature. It had odd silver and black markings on what seemed to be its face, and something like fins on either side of its head. Satoru backed away from it until he was up against the metal wall behind him. "Is my appearance really so shocking to you?" the alien asked. Where its mouth would have been a yellow light. Where its mouth would have been was a yellow light that flashed on each syllable. "I've grown quite accustomed to yours." Satoru had one hand on the wall, waiting to see what it would do with the control panel. Was this a spaceship, he wondered? Were they in space? It didn't feel like that. It felt like they were on the ground. But where? "My people are called Mephiles," the alien went on, "and we live far away, on the other side of the universe. From there, we can see just about every other inhabited world. We have technology you Earthlings haven't even imagined yet, which allows us to do so many things you cannot." Satoru didn't answer. The creature was about the strangest thing he'd ever seen, but it sounded awfully familiar, like a grown-up who wanted something from him and expected him to cooperate. "I've grown so accustomed to your appearance because I've been observing the Earth for a long time," it was saying. "You humans in general, and you, Satoru, in particular. And as I watched this beautiful blue world, so much water, I grew to want it." He straightened up, wishing Akiko were with him so he wouldn't have to face this creature all by himself. "If I wanted to, I could take this world by force," the alien continued. "It would be easy for me to do so. But that would also be a contradiction of my most deeply held principles. I detest violence. However, you can help me avoid violence. and the destruction and loss of life that comes with it. All you have to do is agree to just give me the Earth. So it was one of those, Satoru thought, greedy, selfish, and didn't care about what anyone else wanted or needed. It may have been an alien from another world, but it was really nothing special at all. He sighed, the first time he'd ever met an alien, and it was nothing but a big letdown. Surely, you must see the wisdom in this, the alien said. Its deep voice still sounded distorted and inhuman, like it was using a machine to talk, but Satoru could tell it thought it was superior to him and every other human. After observing you for as long as I have, I know that you're a good Earthling, a wonderful human being who would never deliberately cause pain and suffering. All you have to do is say the right words, and this world will be mine. The alien fell silent. We'll cap it for right there. Don't want to spoil how this goes, except to say it's one chapter of a larger adventure, so the world doesn't end up under control of Mephiles. I haven't seen Alien Mephiles' episode yet of the main show. I'm working my way through it. I'm on episode 4, though I've also watched a couple episodes later than that. And I've seen Mephiles pop up in later things as well. He's one of the most popular monsters Seijin for a reason. In Ultraman Orb, an alien Mephiles called Dawn Nostra leads the Planetary Invasion Union, or as I heard it in the subtitles, the Planetary Invasion Syndicate, which spells piss, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, also, he reappears in Shin Ultraman, possibly the only crossover that this and Shin Ultraman have, outside of having Zeton and Ultraman, is in that character. And I mentioned this, but both this novel and Shin Ultraman work as kind of a compilation movie of the original Ultraman show, taking disjointed adventure chapters and spinning them into a narrative that encompasses the themes of the show with many of its most exciting battles. Now, granted, neither of these are recycling the show. This is a new story, technically speaking, more of a remix, modernizing it slightly and putting it in writing, not in live action, with exposition being given earlier than in the show, let's say, whereas Shin Ultraman just is a new movie with new footage and CGI rather than suits. Johnny Sacco, as we've talked about before, has a very good compilation movie, Voyage into Space. And I like Voyage into Space for a lot of reasons, but also especially because it implies the time skips present in the show and the space of time, the time frame it takes over, without showing all those adventures. The new characters pop up. Johnny's gotten more proficient in the episodes they chose to do. Even though they were some of the first ones in the production order, they still were able to put them efficiently within the movie, Voyage into Space, to carry forth a similar meaning. It also chose some of the best monsters, though a lot of the best monsters didn't make it into that movie. If you are going to do a compilation movie of Ultraman, this is the best monster cast to use. You gotta have Red King in there, you gotta have Gamora in there, they had multiple episodes, you gotta have a Bolton, and you probably have to start with Bemular, otherwise you're doing some weird cuts to bring in other monsters. Mephiles is iconic. They could have gotten Zereb, who does the imitation Ultraman bit. An alien Zereb does appear in this book, funnily enough, but not as a full-sized imitation Ultraman as happens in Shin Ultraman. Then Zeton, obviously. For want of a better alternative, this is the best compilation movie. I know there's compilation movies of Ultraman. Most of them aren't very good from what I've heard. I'll look into them. Shin Ultraman chooses to have the procession of Baragon clone monsters. That's Pagos from Ultra Q, Naranga, Gabora as his monster cast, with cameos from Gomez, Pegula, and I think another bird also appears. Then the Seijin of Zereb, Mephiles. Then you have Zeton, who's not even a monster, but a super weapon now. That's not really important. I respect Shin Ultraman. I think this is the better compilation version of Ultraman. And you can buy this on Amazon. It's pretty cheap. All right, yeah. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, like or comment or subscribe if you can. Every week we read from one of these things, though not always from Titan Books. And we have a TikTok page, a Facebook page. This is the YouTube. You can subscribe, as I mentioned. Thank you for watching. That's a wrap.